Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. The boys are back in town. The severe takeaways for 2023. I am E. Spencer Kite. He is Harry Powell. We are back discussing live UFC action for the first time in 1 month. Huxley is on the couch. The art is back on the walls, including a fantastic Empire Strikes Back poster. Harry Powell, how are you, sir? It's nice to do this again.
Oh, yeah, it is nice.
Missed it.
Me too. I really have missed it. When I had a chat with Ian on the preview show, I was like, fucking hell, boys. Like this MMA thing at times can be draining. It can be, it can be a lot of work. It can feel as though it's a bit of a grind and a bit of a slog at times when the events just keep rolling and going back after a month, bit of Christmas time, bit of time off work, bit of time with the family, bit of time with the dog. And I'm like, just let me talk about people punching each other, please. And yeah, I can't wait. I'm very excited to be back.
It was point 10 of the 10 things I liked going into this event is just, look, we're back. Like, I get all of what you said. I get all of the sentiment of we need a break sometimes. It can be too much. I even understood at the start of the week when people instantly reacted to, we get a main event change right out of the chute with Sean Strickland stepping in for Nasruddin Imavov. But I was just for Calvin Gastelum. Thank you for the correction. Against Nasruddin Imavov. But I was excited to have action back in front of me. I was excited to get back into doing this. And so let's get into doing this. UFC Vegas 67 took place on Saturday at the UFC Apex, headlined, as we just said, Sean Strickland stepping in and defeating Nasruddin Imavov on short notice in a matchup between ranked middleweights competing at light heavyweight. Unanimous decision, 2 49-46s, a 48-47. The fight I expected from Sean Strickland. I picked him with Ian on the picks and plays. I expected this to be the test that Nasruddin Imavov needed at this point, and I thought that Sean Strickland was a better test than Calvin Gastelum for the reasons we saw. The pressure, the pace, the experience being in 5-round fights, the ability to just sort of disrupt your timing and your rhythm and not really let you settle in because he's a little awkward, because he's a little off tempo, and just gets under your skin a little bit where you can't do the things that you normally naturally want to do would give him an avenue for success. And we saw that. You watched it this morning. What were your thoughts on the fight?
My initial thoughts was that I was quite wrong.
These things happen in MMA.
They do, but going in, I can only make assessments based on the tangibles of where I determined Sean Strickland to be at the time. And where I determined Sean Strickland to be at the time, coming off the performances of the last couple of fights, was a man that was more timid than he had been before and more defensively and tactically aware than he had been before. Now, we spoke offline about I picked Imavov and you picked Sean Strickland, and we discussed as to why we chose our individual picks. And my picks were that I just thought Imavov was going to be a better grappler in there. I thought he was going to offer more threats than he did in there. Now, there was a moment at the weigh-ins where Sean was acting a little strange.
Extra Sean.
Yeah, extra Sean, a little more extroverted than usual, a little more strange, a little more weird. Didn't seem too focused, right? Was talking to a media member in the crowd and wasn't really bothered by what Imavov was saying. Didn't really look focused or dialed in. And I sent that to you, and you were like, oh, okay, that's a little sign for worry. And I think in the first round, it was quite close, right? Imavov started out the gate pretty fast, looked really good to begin with. But I think that what Sean realized early in round one and then cemented to himself in round two was that Imavov was going to try and come out here with just big explosive movements and look to take his head off, essentially. He wasn't going to look to touch the body, touch the legs, bring the hands down, go up top, look to grapple and make it a mixed martial arts fight. He was looking to do actually exactly what he said in the press conference, which was I'm going to put my hands on this dude and I'm going to put him away.
Right.
And I think that now this is the second showing for me of Imavov's naivety. The first was in the Joaquin Buckley fight, where he allowed emotions to sort of rule that fight and got very, very, very tired by the end of it because he'd been putting so much into those shots and into those movements. And then now against Sean Strickland, where in that first opening stanza of 2 minutes 40, 2 minutes 50-ish, he was like, oh, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to absolutely fucking smoke this dude. And then when he realized, I think, that Sean was a lot bigger than him on fight night, and I think when he realized that Sean wasn't going to go away and that awkward shell style, though his chin's up in the air and conventionally it doesn't look great. I will say this. I thought Dom Cruz did a fantastic job on comms in this fight, and I'll litter through as we go through the rounds why I thought that. Yes, that's me listening to comms. I wanted to hear what the corners were saying, right? And again, I think Nixick and Chris Curtis
I got you.
was offering some really interesting insights.
Agreed.
I mean, Fernando Lopez was talking in French and I got fucking no idea what he's going on about, but you know what I mean? I think for me, the intangible that was answered, and the intangible I wasn't going to bank on because it's an intangible going into this fight with Strickland, was, is he going to be able to garner the confidence to believe in himself that he can win this fight? And the answer halfway through that first round, when he realized Imavov was doing big explosive things and that he wasn't going to get caught by one clean enough to put him away, was, yeah, I could probably win this fight. The end of that first round, Sean Strickland not turned the tables around, but he certainly landed some really, really nice stuff. The second round, then I think he picked up the pressure. We talked about the third round. The fourth round was, to me, lots of Sean Strickland doing really, really interesting big shot type things. And then the fifth, as we've already spoken about, Imavov gets a little aggressive, realizing he needs to put his foot on the gas a little bit. And, you know, that's the fight. But from an overarching perspective, I was very impressed with Sean's ability to implement his game plan. In the same vein, I was disappointed with Nassourdine Imavov not switching things up at all, right? One of the things I said on the preview show, and I still believe to this point, is Sean does stand very high. His chin's in the air, and that Philly shell is really, really high. That adapted Philly shell is really, really high. Well, that means that his legs and his body and his hips are available at all times. And the only shot I saw Imavov throw was that single leg in the third round or second round, whichever it was, that was just out of frustration. It was just off of
it was out of annoyance more than I want to actually do something with this.
Right. And I think there's an element here, and again, this is an intangible, this is just something that the fight told me, was in that first round, Nassourdine went out with the maybe arrogance, maybe delusion, maybe this is what a fighter should think, of like, I can't be seen to lose to a guy for the values that the man holds and the way that he fights.
Right.
I can't be seen to lose to a guy like Sean Strickland. So I need to go out here and put on a show on this dude and not just prove that I am better, but prove that slick striking, conventionally beautiful striking, conventionally beautiful movement is better than what this dude has to offer. And I think that's naive. Yep. You know, like, I don't think that it's the cleanest, easiest, most efficient route to victory. Something that I took from Sam Creasy, and this will be the last thing I'll say, when I spoke to him recently, was that he's like, I game plan, obviously, for a fighter. I need to know what the fighter's going to do. I need to know what the fighter's going to bring to me. But then when it comes to my own game plan, the question is, how can I efficiently get this done? How can I win this fight in the most efficient manner? The most efficient manner might be staying on the outside and pot-shotting a guy. And if he's an incredible wrestler, pot-shotting him, keeping away, staying out of the pocket, and doing my absolute best to ride out a points win here. Or it could be that this guy's really cautious, really timid, and I just go and run him over. The efficiency, I think, is what's missing with Nassourdine Imavov. And I think Sean Strickland highlighted that really, really beautifully.
I think efficiency is going to be a thing that we talk about throughout the year, because it's a beautiful way of putting it. And it's a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately, because for all the talk that we have about volume and pace and pressure and those things, none of it matters as much if you're not effective and efficient with that output. And I think a lot of what you said there about both athletes is bang on. So Sean Strickland, again, we weren't really excited about the way things looked on Friday. He's chatting with Alex B. Hunnan in the front row of media. He's kind of not looking at Imavov. He said after the fact, the way that guy stared me down, I wanted to whatever. Sean being Sean. But as you said, he came out there in that fight and was like, oh, I'm going to be able to do the things that I want to do here. And he doesn't have an answer for it. Great. Confidence goes up. We see a good Sean Strickland performance. We saw more variety. We saw him mix in some kicks and a couple takedowns, land a couple bigger right hands, positive things. We saw the good version of Sean Strickland on Saturday. I don't think it changes too much in terms of his place in the division. I think he is settled in where he is, because you can't bank on getting this guy every time. We didn't get this guy against Jared Cannonier. We most certainly did not get this guy against Alex Pereira. But the Imavov part for me, and I mentioned this to you offline yesterday, was that I think this is a learning experience, or it absolutely should be, for a number of reasons. One, you have that extra 10 pounds. Actually, you have an extra 20 pounds and you used 10 of it. Sean used all of it. That made a difference in that fight. Two, you have additional weapons and you used none of them. So as much as, yes, you have beautiful fluid striking and you can bounce and look really good against a guy that's going to let you look good, like he did against Ian Heinisch, as he did against Edmund Shabazian, as he did at times, even against Joaquin Buckley. When you're not getting that, you can't just say, no, but this is my style. This is what I intended to do. He needed to change things up. And Fernand Lopez constantly tried to get him to go, but it was just, you need to go. It wasn't, you need to switch into wrestling. You need to switch into more kicks or more this or more that. And I think that's the part where they need to go back, take this fight, look at it and go, here's what we can improve, because he's still 27. All of the measurables, all the intangibles that are very good about Nassourdine Imavov remain very good. I think the change of opponent was a detriment to him. From as we talked about through the week, I liked the matchup against Calvin Gastelum. I thought he would beat Calvin Gastelum, because my opinion is that Calvin Gastelum is just not the same fighter that he was even 2-3 years ago. But this needs to be a learning experience. This needs to be, I'm so much more fascinated in seeing Nassourdine Imavov's next fight than Sean Strickland's, just because here you go. You've had this experience now again, another loss in the UFC. When you have an opportunity to go forward, when you get that main event assignment, there's stuff to work on. Go to it. Let me see justification of the excitement people had for you, because we didn't see it Saturday. We know it's there. Now you've got to work on the things that you need to work on. We talk all the time about tests being important, and there's reasons to and methods to this madness of putting Imavov in there against a Calvin Gastelum, against a Sean Strickland. This is why. He learned some stuff on Saturday, some tough lessons. Now go apply them. Now go put them into practice in your fight, in your career, in your training.
Yeah, and this is a wild thing to say, but I've just...
Oh, I'm excited. I love when you start with, this is a wild thing to say.
I wonder how much of this performance comes from being in training camp with somebody like Cyril Gagné for a significant period of time. Cyril's been sat on that John Jones fight a little while, I'm sure. The team will have known for a while that there are ideas circling, and there's a possibility of this is happening. Maybe there's no contract in front of them, but we're working stuff out with John. Maybe start to get yourself ready. Like, there's a chance that we're doing this in 3, 4, 5 months. If you want to start getting ready, then start doing that now. And when you're moving around with somebody like Cyril Gagné, and you feel the ability of that man, you feel the weight of that man, the size of that man. And if you're able to have competitive rounds with him, implementing the style that you have, which is in some way a mimic of, or an adaptation, I should say, of Cyril Gagné's style, you look at a guy like Sean Strickland, who stands bolt upright with his chin in the sky and his hands, in awkward positions, and the way that he fights with the outstretched hand fighting and the chin up and the whatever is not conventionally beautiful at all. And then when you get in there and it's not the same, we see the reaction that we see from Imavov in the 5th. We see the single leg. We see some of the stuff in the 3rd when Sean's taking a breather because he knows he has 2 hard rounds to come, and Imavov is still pressing the pace. And I wonder whether the ignorance or arrogance comes from inside the camp, where there's just a touch of disrespect towards the effectiveness of Sean Strickland's game when he gets it going. And again, I have absolutely no evidence for that.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, rather than it being a touch of disrespect, I think it's a touch of hubris. That would be my guess. Because we saw that in Cyril Gane's fight with Francis Ngannou a little bit, right? A compromised Francis Ngannou, who you beat in the first 2 rounds pretty handily, beat him in the striking, avoid the big power, and you get kind of settled in. And then my man wrestles you, and you have no answers. And we see that with Imavov here, that you think, okay, I can go out and style on this guy who stands upright, who does this, but you don't do any of the additional things. You don't do any of the extras. You just think, I go with one of the best heavyweights in the world. I can go with this guy, but it's just not the same. It's just, it feels to me like just that little bit of hubris of, I know how good I am and this is going to be easy. It's never easy. And I think that shone through on Saturday a little bit.
Styles make fights.
Absolutely.
Styles absolutely make fights.
Absolutely.
And I think that one of the things that is we talked about a lot last year, or at least I did, is mixed martial arts in 2022 and now 2023 is all about being able to employ all of your weapons at all times. And we have seen and we know that Imavov is not a limited fighter in that he can only do a bit of stand-up and maybe stop a takedown now and again, or, he's got a good get-up game. There is a varied arsenal of grappling in there. And
time to start using it all.
If we're going to see anything of a top 10 next to his name, if we're going to see anything of a top 5 against Imavov's name in the future, this naivety, this delusion, I think, that what is honestly very beautiful, very crisp, very fluid striking is going to get him through, or this emotional style of fighting that we saw in the 5th, or we saw in the 3 rounds against Joaquin Buckley, that's a massive hindrance. And as you say, big lessons here. But to me, there were big lessons in the Joaquin Buckley fight to take. And
Agreed.
We saw a little bit of that old Nasruddin Imavov in that 5th round. And whilst I can't begrudge a fighter for fighting emotionally when it's been a very, very frustrating 20 minutes of fighting, it's your job to be calm.
Those are the things that are going to get that single digit next to your name or get you into contention.
What did Alex Bahia say? He did an interview recently and people were like, you were coming into that 5th round and you were losing the fight, right? And he's like, I've been in loads of fights. You just got to be calm, because if you're not calm, I'll never win the fight ever. He said, if I wasn't calm, I could have been the one that was staring up at the lights very easily, but I wasn't. I was just calm and I believed that I would find the shot. And I may not have found the shot, but I did find the shot. Yep. And so for somebody like Imavov, the drain on your gas tank that it would take after an already 20 hard minutes of fighting to go in and add extra taxation to an already, Tory level taxed. That's a British political joke for anyone. A Tory level taxed gas tank is a lot to ask of any man or any fighter. But to ask of it when you've been in a really competitive 20-minute fight is something else. But let's see. I'm excited for what he does next.
Same. I'm excited to discuss this next fight as well. Featherweight division. Dan Ige puts Damon Jackson out late in the second round. A beautiful counter left hook in the midst of an exchange. A big win for Dan Ige. A much needed win for Dan Ige. Halts Damon Jackson's 4-fight winning streak. This to me was a perfect example of look at the fighters, not the recent results. And I say that with all due respect for Damon Jackson and what he had done. But the idea of, well, one guy's on a 3-fight slide and one guy's on a 4-fight winning streak doesn't quite level out when you look at the level of competition Dan Ige had lost to. It was Josh Emmett. It was Chan Sung Jung. It was Movsar Evloev. One of those men is fighting for the interim title. One of them has fought twice for the undisputed title. And one of them is arguably one of the, 10 best prospects, 15 best prospects in the UFC. And Damon Jackson, for as good as he has looked, his best win was against Pat Sabatini. And we saw on Saturday that veteran understanding of how to dictate terms, how to make this fight happen where you want it to be. And as you said, similar to the Alex Pereira thing, Dan Ige believing I'm going to find my shot. If I just keep doing the things that I need to do, either I'm finding my shot or I'm beating this guy on the cards and I'm getting my victory. And oh boy, did he find his shot. Your thoughts, good sir.
On the preview show, what I said about this fight was that I really, really liked it for Damon Jackson because he deserved this.
Agreed. 100%.
He deserved a name. He deserved a spot like this at a co-main event. A 4-fight winning streak in that division is not easy to come by. And lots of people were semi-high on Pat Sabatini's skill set.
For sure.
And Damon Jackson went in and fucking destroyed him. And I think for the reasons I just stated, I was pleased for Damon Jackson. But Dan Ige is a nightmare matchup for him. And he's a nightmare matchup for him for 2 reasons. I think what we are seeing in mixed martial arts now is that control-based grappling without the ability to scramble is dead. And the reason I say that is if we look at Matoish Gamrot, Benil Dariush, if we look at Islam Makhachev, if we look at Islam Saryukin.
Armin.
Thank you. Armin Saryukin. I can't even say it's early or late. It's not. It's a perfect time to record. Armin Saryukin. If we look at Movsar Evloev, and if we look at somebody like Dan Ige, they have the ability to do both the control-based grappling, but also the scramble-based grappling if they needed it, right? Tim Elliott is somebody that much prefers the scramble-based grappling, and we don't see a lot of control-based grappling. Brandon Royval, scramble-based grappler, not really a control-based grappler. You look at then somebody like Mohamed Makayev could do both. So you start to see the picture that I'm painting, right? I felt going in that we were really going to find out where Dan Ige was. Because if Damon Jackson was able to go in, dictate terms, get to his grappling, which is obviously what he wants to be doing, put Dan Ige on his back and keep him there, we have to raise big old questions about Dan Ige. But from moment one, Dan Ige went out, was really aggressive on the front foot. And I think that what that did is way more important than anything else that happened in the fight. That pressure footwork meant that Damon Jackson was on the back foot the entire time. Shooting whilst going backwards is hard. The timing has to be perfect. Damon Jackson didn't find any of those shots, didn't find any of those perfections. And he was also always worried about where his back was in terms of how far away from the cage am I? Do I have the right angle to escape? one of these big fridge hands coming towards me. Like, what are we doing? Right? There are lots and lots of things to think about there that forced Damon Jackson to move away from his game plan. And when you have a fighter under pressure like that, and they are already being asked questions like that, you're going to catch hands, and you're going to have the ability to catch hands. And whilst I thought Dan Ige was fantastic in the first round, I do think he put his foot on the gas a little bit too much. As about 2 minutes into the second round, there was a moment where Dan had thrown some good shots at Damon, and Damon hadn't gone anywhere yet. And then there was a moment where Dan looked a little disheveled and like he was blowing a touch, and Damon came back in and landed some good shots. And then obviously the counter left landed. But I think for Dan Ige, this is once again a reminder of the level. I think it's a reminder from an overarching stereotype of fighters that Dan Ige is a more modern fighter than Damon Jackson. And I think it's important to see where those differences are. And I think it points us into the direction of what MMA is going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. And it's going to be generalists with big power. That's what MMA is going to be, right? It's going to be who's going to be able to land more impactful striking as per the scoring criteria. And if it gets to grappling positions, who's going to be able to do everything? And that was Dan Ige in this fight.
That was very much Dan Ige in this fight. It was a good, as you said, a reminder of the levels. I think some of that second round, we heard him after the fact speak emotionally about, I really needed this. I went through some tough points, having lost 3 straight. My kid hadn't seen me win a fight yet. It'd been almost 2 years. Like, those things weigh on you. And so I think that carried over a little bit. But it was a very good performance overall. As you said, reminds everybody of who Dan Ige is, where he fits in this division. I don't think it does anything to really dampen Damon Jackson's stock. He remains a good veteran fighter in that second 15 in the featherweight division, where there are going to be ample opportunities for him. We move forward to the middleweights in the middle of the card. I don't know what has been unlocked with Roman Kopylov in the last 2 fights, but keep that door unlocked, because my man has looked very good for his last 2 fights. Came into this one off a great finish over Alessio Di Chirico and put Punahele Soriano out with a pair of body kicks that almost made me vomit while watching. The spinning back kick landed crisp. I thought for sure we were going to get a delayed reaction from Puna of eat it and then crumple. That didn't happen. Credit to him. He then took another baseball bat to the guts. Again, didn't quite crumple right away. It took a little more. But Kopylov has looked extremely good in these last 2 fights. What were your thoughts?
I think it might be the haircut, lads.
It might be growing out the mop.
I think it might just be that.
Little bit of Samson power in the hair.
Samson in there. I think so. Like, I was impressed with Kopylov, obviously. Like, this as a fight, I think I would have been happy to see other fights in this position over others, but without talking about card placement, because it's not that drastically important. I was impressed with Kopylov, right? Like, we know what Punahele Soriano brings. It's big power, it's forward pressure. He can put you out at any point, loves a scrap, doesn't mind a scrap, will happily stand in the center with you. And Kopylov was just smarter, you know? He just landed the more impactful shots. He was just smarter. And I agree, I'm not really sure what's happened here, but is it just he gets a big win against Alessio Di Chirico and the confidence starts to rise and he realizes that actually he can do this against good caliber opponents in the UFC, and then we're going to see, we're going to see everything else. Imogen's just leaving. We can see everything else start to rise. Possibly. But whatever it is, I agree with you. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. One of the things that I questioned going into this fight was, is it just a matter of consistency and opportunities? His first couple fights in the UFC, he's been on the roster, I believe, for like 5 years, and this was his 4th fight. He's a guy that just has run into injuries and visa issues and more visa issues and more injuries and just hasn't been able to get anything going. Has that performance against Akiriko, which gets him in the win column, builds some of that confidence. And now, rather than in previous instances where he's been out for 9 months, 12 months, 16 months, he's back in 6 months. And he gets in there with another guy that's going to fight him on what would essentially be his terms, right? You want to come in and throw with me? Well, great. I'm the more technical guy. I'm the guy that's going to actually move my feet to throw these big hands and land these good shots. And so we'll see how that carries over. I think this fight kind of highlights for me the limitations right now of Punahele Soriano. And I talked to Puna before this fight. I've talked to him a number of times. I like him. I think he has upside. I think there is talent there. But you see in this fight that he's just reaching on everything. Everything is thrown. It's literally thrown. It's from a distance. And I'm hoping that once I extend, you're on the end of it rather than I'm bringing myself forward. You're the far more technical guy out of this twosome. Am I right? Is that the right read, that it's just he's not bringing his feet with him? He's not throwing these things the right way, and it's costing him a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I wonder whether there is I'm just used to when this fight happens, when this type of fight happens, I am used to being able to put hands on dudes and them falling over.
Right. That's not going to happen at this level as much as it did previously, even as it did in his first couple fights. And if that lesson hasn't been learned through these last through the 3 losses in 4 fights, it's time to start learning it.
Mm-hmm.
Time to start learning it.
I agree.
You have big power. It carries like it works. It's there, but you have to give yourself the opportunity and the best chances to land it, because it's not just going to be I hit you and you die. That's not what happens here. Move to the women's bantamweight division. Raquel Pennington collects a split decision win over Ketlin Vieira to get her 5th straight victory. A good performance. I think she did all of the right things in this fight. The first round was close and competitive. And then from there, Rocky just said, look, I train in Colorado. I train at elevation. I've got a better gas tank than you. I can up the volume. You're throwing singles. I can throw combinations. I can dictate all of this. And you just don't have a response. And we've seen that now from Ketlin Vieira a few times. When she lands the big shots, it's great. But when you ask her to do more, it's not there. This feels like a fight to me that should get Raquel Pennington, if not a championship opportunity, then at least in there where the next one definitely carries that win and you go forward. This is a good win. It wasn't a barn burner of a fight, but it's a very good win, a very professional win to me.
We nailed this fight on the preview show. And we said, basically, this is going to go one of 2 ways. Either Ketlin Vieira is going to throw big hands, big power, and Rocky Pennington isn't going to have an answer, or Pennington's just going to drown her with that sort of style that she has. And Pennington, to me, Ian and I had not a disagreement, but just a discussion about the ramifications of this fight. And I said that, I think either woman gets a title shot off this. If Ketlin Vieira wins, it's likely going to be that she batters Pennington from pillar to post, and there's a bit of blood and a lot of swelling, and it's going to look how it looks. But Pennington is now on a 5-fight win streak, 4-fight win streak, 5-fight win streak, right? 5-fight win streak. We've gone from what would have been a record of 10-8, which doesn't look great, to 15-8.
Right.
That looks great.
And the last 3 are Ketlin Vieira, Aspen Ladd, who everybody held in high regard until she disappeared, and Macy Chasson up in weight where she finished her.
Right.
Hasn't lost a fight since that second fight with Holly Holm.
I think there is and we made this argument on the previous show. I think there is an element where Rocky Pennington is a little of the Sean Strickland. It doesn't look beautiful in there. It really doesn't. But guess what? Fucking works like.
Yeah. She knows who she is. She is a testament to figuring out. I won't even say knowing who she is. She has figured it out over these last bunch of fights. I talked to her before this one. She has done a ton of work finding the right mental coaches to work with, finding the right group of coaches to organize her camp and to run her training and to just get everything in order. Life is in order now for her, both professionally and personally. As we heard, right? Tisha was there, pregnant. They got married last year. The big wedding, the big party is coming later this year. Everything's in line, and she has just turned straight into, this is who I am as a fighter. Let me just max this out as much as I can. And it's worked.
So I'm actually going to make a counter argument to that.
Okay.
I think the power of Rocky Pennington is, I put a tweet up just before we started recording this. A UFC roster watch tweeted out that Diaz, Dillashaw, Alvi, Ngannou, and Jose Aldo have all been taken off the roster. And I tweeted out something along the lines of like, it's always strange to watch the UFC eras tick by, but this is certainly the passing of a specific era. Rocky Pennington has seen like 4 eras in MMA. She's seen the very, very start of women's MMA, where the level was pretty horrendous and they didn't want to put females on cards. She was
on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter that featured female talents.
She's seen the Ronda Rousey era. She's been through that. She's seen the Holly Holm era when everyone lorded over her. And she has a win over Holly Holm, by the way. She's seen the Amanda Nunes.
She does not.
She doesn't have a win over
She lost 2 fights to Holly Holm.
Understood.
Both by split decision.
One of these for me.
For you. A hairy swipe, as we call them.
But she's seen it all.
Yeah.
And the skills have transferred through those eras. And I think that when you look at the Aspen Ladd fight, I was high hopes of Aspen Ladd. I think most people at SevereMMA in those first couple of fights were high hopes of Aspen Ladd. I know you were high hopes of Aspen Ladd when we first started looking. And Rocky just went out and said, that's cool, but I've got these set of skills and I know what they are and I can implement them against good fighters. There are sometimes I can't, right? There are sometimes where
hasn't been able to against Holly Holm. Can't get herself off the fence.
Right. And yet times it just works.
Yep.
And against Ketlin Vieira, just worked. Now, it was a close fight. Don't get me wrong. It was a close fight, competitive fight. Don't ask me about the scoring. I didn't try and score it. But what I did see was Rocky Pennington in there doing work. And if she doesn't get a title shot, like you say, I have no problem seeing a #1 contendership fight.
Yeah.
No problem whatsoever.
Yeah. Let's see what happens with the next couple people in the queue. Let's see what happens with Juliana Pena. Let's see who Irene Aldana gets matched up with and figure it out from there. We don't know what Amanda Nunes wants to do either. That's one of the things I tried desperately to find out over the holidays what Amanda Nunes wanted to do. I was able to find out what Valentina Shevchenko wanted to do in the story that is up in the archives of UFC.com, and that is fight tomorrow. Amanda Nunes, ghost, don't know what she's up to. Raquel Pennington, the way I put it in the recap piece, in the What Happened Saturday Night piece on SevereMMA, is she's now the clubhouse leader, right? We've done the qualifying laps. She's got pole position for right now, but there's still some people to do their qualifiers. She may lose that pole position, but for right now, through one event of 2023, she's the front runner for the next title shot. That's a good spot to be. That assures you certain things going forward. And I don't know if deserve is the right word. She's fucking earned this. She's worked hard to get back here. So I'd love to see her get another title shot. All I'm going to say here for this next one, before I just lay out and let you enjoy, Cousin Umar is a problem, folks. Umar Nurmagomedov knocks out Hani Barcelos at 4 minutes 40 of the first round. It is a hellacious finish and a follow-up that is purely instinctual, purely just muscle memory. He is falling. He is on the ground. I need to make sure. And then you see instantly they're like, oh, fuck, is he okay? He was not okay. Contrary to Derek Lewis's favorite hashtag, he's not okay because Umar Nurmagomedov sent him to the shadow realm. And dare I say, I think it may be a little bit too early to say he might be the best bantamweight on the planet. But he's in that conversation, boys.
I will not say he's the best bantamweight on the planet. I think, coming again on the preview show, I will hark back to what I said. This was the veteran test, right? We've had a couple of rolls of the dice. They have handled Umar Nurmagomedov
Perfectly.
Exactly as a Joe Silva or a man of old, a system of old would have chewed up and rolled with Umar Nurmagomedov. They have done exactly that. A couple of guys that he can absolutely hang with, no problem, goes out, stomps them. You then get a Nate Maness type who nobody really knows, but the right people know he's a very, very good fighter.
Right.
Goes out and fucking rolls through that dude as well. Now, this is here's the veteran. Skill for skill, you're better than this fella, without a shadow of a doubt. But can you do it?
Yeah.
This is Imavov Sean Strickland. This is can you do it? Can you? Because he knows ways to win when he's not the better fighter. So what are we looking at? Umar said, that's great. Watch. And just absolutely decimated Honey Barcelos.
Yeah.
The things that impress me the most about Umar is that there are holes. There are definitely holes. Honey Barcelos was able to come and land some straights, was able to get to Umar a little, but the lack of phase, the lack of care, the lack of bother, the trust in his skills, the calm under fire, the movement, the footwork, the ability to transition, and then to find the level of power when one of your legs isn't even on the ground and you find that left hook from a weird, awkward angle is scary. Really, really scary. I don't see where the core rotation came from for that level of power. He's not pivoting on the floor because his fucking knees by his chin. Like, I don't know where he finds that power. But the moment it happened, I said to you, what the fuck happened? Like, what did he even hit him with? Was it the knee? Was it the left hand? Like, what the fuck happened?
Knee caught nothing but air, stepped through with a knee, didn't get anywhere near the target. And before, as you said, that right leg hit the ground, the left hand came and just found the chin, twisted Honey Barcelos' head, and we're done. Like, not he's hurt. We are done.
Yeah.
We talk all the time about things that can differentiate athletes, things that can separate everybody in that really good set, right? Everybody that's in that great set. What are the little things? And it is little things. Boys and girls, everybody watching, it is little things. There's not big gaps when you get into the top 5, when you get into that upper tier of talent. It's little things. That's one of those little things that I see it and go, holy shit, man. Like, we have talked throughout his rise in the UFC about the different skills that he has that are different than the last name usually presents. We saw a bunch of the kicks, the dexterity with the kicks in that first round. It's a thing that makes him extra dangerous to me because you have to honor it. He's also got the wrestling in the back pocket. The minute he needs it, the minute he wants it, you are touching canvas. I don't care how good your takedown defense is. You're going to have to be defensive and put it on display. And then he's got that power. Then he's got that ability. And even more so than the power, to me, it's the timing and the read of it, of just knowing, well, let me throw this here because I think I got a spot for it. And he's out. It's pretty impressive.
To me, what I think we saw, and only time will tell, right? But I'm putting my stake in the ground now. is Umar Nurmagomedov is realizing that he can play in the octagon now. And what I mean by play is a same side knee to a same side left hook is not something you drill. It's not a conventionally drilled combination, right? Because generally you're kind of off balance. You don't have that core rotation. The idea is you either throw double straights. Double straights is fine, or you'll throw double hooks, but you'll throw double hooks because on the same side, because you can generate the core rotation when your arms are coming back and your body's moving side to side. But conventionally, when you're teaching striking, you're throwing left hand to right hand to left hand to right hand to left hand to right hand, or vice versa, depending on what your stance is, right? And the reason for that is because you start to generate power through your core and through the momentum that your legs are creating when they're pivoting, right? But Umar Nurmagomedov's like, yeah, but I can just do this instead.
Right. I can have my right knee up here and throw my left hand, and it doesn't matter that none of this mechanically should make sense.
And it's playing. That's what he's doing, right? Like he's playing. And it didn't follow. That fight didn't follow the blueprint. And I don't think it's because Khabib wasn't in the corner. I think it's because Umar has just reached a level of confidence and maybe a level of skill, that he can go in and be like, look, let's just see what happens, lads. You know? Because I think I agree with you. And I'm going to be picky. I don't think he has the wrestling. I think he has the grappling, right?
Yeah.
Because he can submit you from wherever he wanted. Like, he can do the jiu-jitsu things just fine. Right. Just fine, boys.
Yeah, I need to get better at making sure I differentiate those two terms.
It's not just like, yeah, he can put you on his back for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
it's not just the big takedown wrestling. It is the chain grappling. It is
everything.
Yeah.
Like, and I think he has it. Now, can he do that against the best guys in the division? I can't wait to find out. But I think now to me, if the UFC is going to do this the right way, we either see Umar Nurmagomedov as a just underneath the co-main event on a pay-per-view, or we see him as a main event of a UFC fight night against X fighter.
Merab Dvalishvili.
Yeah, that's fine. Like, to me, I would probably pick somebody other than Merab, because I don't think it's that competitive. But I would like to see.
To be clear, you don't think it's that competitive? Umar destroys him.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you make that fight. I think the UFC doesn't have a whole ton of interest in Merab Dvalishvili moving forward, because there are times where it is the Jose Aldo fight. Yeah. And so despite 8 consecutive wins, he's not a guy that we're talking about in the very upper tier. Part of that is his close friend and training partner is the champion, but whatever for now. Mm. And so I think you can leverage, well, he beat this guy that was on an 8-fight winning streak, and look at how handily he did it. Mm. And I think you play that as the third fight, as you said, on a pay-per-view, whether that's March as Umar has requested. Get me back in here quickly. I loved that, because it dovetailed with what I said on 10 things of January is great because maybe that means we're going to get 3 or 4. It seems like he wants to fight 3 or 4. Let's get him somebody in that mix, because it's also, to me, you don't lose anything. If he loses to a guy that's in the top 5, if he loses to Merab, if he loses to, I mean, Chito Vera and Corey Sandhagen are fighting, so that's 2 of those. But like, if he loses to somebody in that really established set, okay, he's 26. It's his first big test against one of the real big boys in the division, and he needed to take a step back. We've seen it with infinite future champions and tenured contenders. But if he wins, then you got a little bit of that. It's similar to me. You get a little bit of that Sean O'Malley that we have right now, where he went out and beat a guy that we didn't think he was going to beat. And now you're a little more excited.
If I could pick a fight.
Yep.
The fight's Piotr Jan.
I mean,
I know that it may be too high of a jump. It may be. But like,
I ain't going to complain about it.
Every single second of that fight. Because to me, like, Merab is a great takedown artist. you know, the UFC plaster bullshit stats all over the fucking broadcast just because they need to write some words next to a name all of the time, right? And setting the record for the amount of takedowns in a UFC fight is not a record you want to be having, because what it means is that you could pick a guy up and take him off his legs really, 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 really well, but you can't fucking hold him down for love nor money, right? I could offer you 10 G's and say, hold that man down, and I'm keeping my fucking cash. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a... We talk about the best grapplers, the most dominant grapplers.
They put you down and they keep you there. The point is to get you down and then do things to you there. Right. With Merab, it's to take you down and tire you out by you having to defend this over and over, because he can do the wrestling for the 15 minutes or the 25 minutes without tiring.
And like, don't get me wrong, you can look at somebody like Colby Covington, who put on a drastically dominant display against Robbie Lawler, where it was a combination of, I'm going to try and choke you, I'm going to threaten to choke you, you're going to have to address these hands, then I'm going to hit you, and then the moment that I've stopped hitting you, if I'm not going to choke you again, I'm just going to put you on your back again, and then I'm going to make you get up, and we're going to go in this tumble dryer for 15 minutes, and then if you decide to try and open the door, I'm going to smash your fucking face in. If not, good luck. And I think Merab would do well to employ some of those similar tactics.
Agreed.
Instead of just being a fantastic takedown artist, if we do a little bit of the punching and the threatening of the dilemmas, and we'll get to Alan Nascimento in a short while, then I think even more of a fan-friendly perspective, people would like that more. Now, don't get me wrong, 85 winning streak in a 135-pound division is fucking stupid numbers. Numbers. And from a meritocracy perspective, there needs to be a decision made as to whether Aljo fucks off or they fight each other for the title, right? Because an 8-fight winning streak of 135 is deserving of a title shot. Anyway, if I'm picking for Umar Nurmagomedov, give me Piotr Yan each and every day of the week. Love it.
He's Harry Powell. I am E. Spencer Kite. These are the severe takeaways for UFC Vegas 67. We move to the prelims. We will bomb through these a little quicker because there are a couple of fights that are going to get the hairy swipe for the most part. But this first one is not. Javid Basharat defeats Matisse Mendonche, a 30-27, 30-27, 29-28 unanimous decision win for the undefeated Snow Leopard, a guy that you and I have both been high on since he came into the UFC. I think we saw the reasons, the base reasons why in this fight. I think, as I'm guessing you do, that there's still work to be done. There's still things that he needs to improve on and further develop a little bit, but the upside's there and you can see it. And it's a good win for Javid Basharat to move to 3-0 in the UFC and just keep moving forward.
Javid Basharat needs a significant test now.
Yes.
The reason why he needs a significant test is because we saw a test against Tony Gravely and he rose to that occasion. It strikes me as Javid is a fighter that is going to fight to the level in front of him. And I need to see that. I also think that there are some holes in Javid's game that we saw on the weekend. And whilst he was a superior technician, had a superior skill set all around, he was... One of the things that I'm jumping all over the place here, but one of the things that I really, really like from a fighter is being immediately cerebral straight after the fight. After the fight, Paul Felder, I think, went up to him and had a chat. And Javid was like, look, it was messy. It was messy. I know it was messy. I could feel it was messy. I knew I was the better fighter, but I just knew it was messy.
He's tough. He's awkward. He doesn't go away. Yeah, it was sloppy.
And he's like, props to him, everything else. But you could see immediately, he's like, fuck's sake. Like, I know that I'm better than that. And I think now we have to push him up significantly in competition. Because if we don't, I think we're running the risk of him not progressing quick enough. In the fights previously, in other organizations, there have been some good tests and some poor tests. I think I need to see right now exactly where the holes are. We need to see what the ceiling is. We know what the floor is.
Yeah.
The floor is, it's not Trevin Jones. It's not Tony Gravely, and it's certainly not Mateusz Mendois, right? It is somewhere higher than that.
Right.
But let me see. Who is it? What's the floor? Right. And I'm not saying chuck him in there with somebody that
exactly.
There's a number 3 next to their name or anything
that's
crazy.
Right. It's the thing I talked about throughout one question and throughout even going back to the Fighters to Watch series. We need to see some of these up and coming fighters, some of these emerging talents that show us that the talent is there. There comes a point where you just stop slow playing, guys. You just stop it being this progression. I thought, and I spoke to Javid before this fight, he felt the same way as I did. This was a weird assignment. You beat Tony Gravely. You have a rookie year where it's Trevin Jones and Tony Gravely, 2 good veteran tests, and then you get a Contender Series guy. Now, he took the fight because he wants to stay active. He didn't want to be out for an extra long amount of time. He also wanted to get a 3rd fight in and get a 3rd victory before his brother debuts so that they can stay separate for a longer time because they've ran into problems of getting fights because they're both in the same division. Now it needs to be, if it's not the top 15 guy that he's asking for, if it's not someone with a number next to their name, it better be somebody right below it. It better be a Hani Barcelos. Now, it's not going to be because he got knocked out, but it needs to be someone in that vein. I like the Chris Gutierrez call out. I like that thought. I'm fine with it even being someone like Jonathan Martinez, who is also on the upswing, who has some power, who will bring some diversity in the striking, can grapple a little bit. It's got to be a test because I think you're right. I think he is a guy that when he's in there and he knows he's better than you, he'll play with his food a little bit. And he needs you to push him to be the absolute best. The reason he said it on Contender Series, if you go back and watch his fight with Oren Colon on the Contender Series, who called him a fucking terrorist in the weigh-ins for that event, he goes out and for the first 2 rounds, he just kind of pieces him up and is clearly better than him. And then in the 3rd round, he's like, all right, fine, I will put you out of your misery, and gets to mount and gets the 1-arm guillotine and looks forward and is like, we're done here now. He's done. And it's the same as this fight with Mendoza, right? He's given him the feint at the weigh-in, and he's given him the gun at the weigh-in. And you see when the fight ends and it's over, Javid gives him the little gun like, yeah, we're great. You had all the big whatever. I did the winning. And I think he needs that test.
I have a name.
Okay. I like when you have names.
And it's Jack Shaw.
Jack Shaw is going to featherweight.
What about if he doesn't, though?
So Jack is recovering from a knee injury, and I'm not sure when he's going to be back.
Jack
is planning on going to featherweight. We will reach out to Jack Shaw to find out what he thinks about that. But as far as I recall, he was going to go to featherweight.
I know who's going to featherweight.
Similar to that.
But like, that's
fight. Similar to that. I mean, is it too far to put him in with Ricky Simone?
Yes. Yes,
Agreed.
I think it is.
Okay. But someone in that second 15, maybe Chris Gutierrez.
I don't mind Chris Gutierrez.
Because Chris Gutierrez is another guy that we need to find out how real this is.
Yeah, like to me, Hani Barcelos would have been perfect if he hadn't have been, sent to the 7th layer of the shadow realm, right? Because big puncher, could do some striking, happy to grapple, happy to go wherever the fight goes, will push you, will come forward, do the things, fine. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind Chris Gutierrez at all. I think Ricky Simone is a little too far. Like, I wouldn't mind Ricky Simone and Nurmagomedov. That would be a fight I would watch the shit out of.
Absolutely.
But I think that's the next step, right? If I was the UFC, right? Javid has now fought in January. Fantastic. If he's not banged up at all, now I know that he's focusing on his brother Farid's fight, fine. But if he's able or happy to parlay 3 training camps together, his own, Javid's, Farid's, and then if he can then parlay into another in March, and if he's happy to do that, chuck him in there with a Chris Gutierrez or a whatever, if obviously everything lines up fine, whatever. If he wins that fight, then we do the veteran test. Maybe you run Hani Barcelos back out. If he wins that fight, we're 5-0 in the UFC, cool. Now let's do the Ricky Simone's, let's do the Corey Sandhagen's, let's do the whoever it is, Song Yudong's, whoever it is, let's do that now. But the next test, I think, is going to be a guy that is a fellow prospect. We don't quite know what the ceiling is, but we know there's a ton of skill there. So let's see that next.
Sounds good to me. Chris Gutierrez, Jonathan Martinez, one of those Factory X boys. Sounds good to me. And while we're here, shout out to Mark Montoya. Glad you're getting better, coach.
Legend.
We move forward to the middleweights. We're not going to spend a lot of time on Abdul Razak Al Hassan defeating Claudio Ribeiro. Grappled him a little bit against the fence, sort of just controlled him a little bit against the fence for the first round, and then came out and smashed him in the face. Abdul Razak Al Hassan is a limited fighter. Claudio Ribeiro is the second of 3 fighters that graduated from the Contender Series this year to debut on this card. It's not looking great for the class of 2021 thus far. I know it's early. This will be a thing that I talk about all year. Not great. Did you have anything to discuss, or are we?
I just thought that generally it was a really intelligent performance by Al Hassan.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a guy
smarter than we usually see.
Right. You know that he's got a bit of power. He likes to do the punching things and the kicking things and the knocking out things. And so I'm just going to fill his arms with lactic acid for a round. I know I'm a freak athlete. I know I've got massive power. I know that if I'm pushing him forward, I'm pushing him back, and I'm filling his arms with lactic acid, I'm going to be fine. Second round comes out, does a blamming, and we walk off fine.
Yeah. Lightweights. Mateusz Rombeski defeats Nick Fiore. 30-26, 30-27, 30-27. This was a fight that Rombeski was expected to dominate from the outset, as Nick Fiore took it on short notice, has very limited experience, terrible looking opponent record. And I mean, the first round was fairly dominant. I think that's where the 10-8 came from. But Rombeski gassed real quick. Nick Fiore didn't offer much and also didn't get put out. I want to wait and see second appearances before I start making decisions. But even with a win here, this is another Contender Series grad where I go, did we overreact to a good win over a similarly limited fighter to get here?
I mean, we've talked before, and I think I can't remember what podcast I made this point on, but I've made the point before. Like, if we totaled up the amount of fighters that have been signed to the UFC from the Contender Series, and we then whittle down a percentile of who have then ended in the top 15, it's still an overwhelmingly large number if we compare it to college football, academy soccer, all of this sort of stuff. Now, yes, the talent pool is different and blah, 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 whatever. But I just think that we're going to get this. This is also the second or third strand reason why the Dana White Contender Series fight exists. And it's to pull in average fighters, and I don't mean average in a condescending or disrespectful way, but guys that will fill up the roster because they're necessary, and they will come in and they'll have some fights, maybe 4, 5, 6 fights maybe. They'll earn a bit of quid, and then they'll get cut because they're not elite level fighters. And the elite level fighters will come in and they will match these guys on their first, second, third outing, and they'll beat them. And those guys will then go back to, you know, whatever local organization that will find them. They'll have that UFC veteran title, and they can continue to make a career that way.
Well, and this coming event in Brazil on Saturday, UFC 283, and this event that just passed this previous Saturday, is a perfect example of the striations of those levels that we're going to see. Jamal Hill is a graduate of the Contender Series. He has progressed his way up the rankings. We've seen the flashes. We've seen the development and the improvement and the high-level skill. He is fighting for a title against Glover Teixeira. Javid Basharat looks like a pretty good prospect, working his way forward. Going to be a guy that is on the roster for an extended period of time. The 3 guys that debuted from the class of 21, we're not sure yet, but we're going to find out. It is exactly what you said. The overall percentage is pretty strong. It's pretty good, all things considered, for the number of swings and misses that exist out there. Just in general, it's pretty good. But so far, the returns, it's why I've talked about this in the whole lead up to this year. Contender Series is changing a little bit. We had some better fights early. Guys were facing better competition on the regional circuit before they got here. That's starting to change, and we need to be real patient and real careful making assessments on these men and women as they come into the UFC, because shit's different at this level, and we're going to see that over the course of this year. Which brings us to your severe spotlight, the first of 2023. Alain Nascimento, rear naked choke finish, 3 minutes and change into the first round against Carlos Hernandez. I felt coming into this fight and this year that Nascimento had the ability to be a dark horse in this division. So far, so good. What made him stand out to you in so many ways to be the first spotlight of the year?
One, because I've never written about him before. I have written about Mr. Basharat. I have written about Mr. Nurmagomedov. Both of those, I think there was a sort of a triptych of performances that really shone out to me, and those were the three, right? Mr. Nascimento, Mr. Basharat, and Mr. Nurmagomedov. And the other thing I do, and again, this isn't necessarily what I do, but I try to take somebody from the prelims, or I try to take somebody from early main card, because everyone's going to talk about the main event always, whether it was good or bad, and the co-main event probably the same. And so I think the idea of the spotlight is not to shine on the main event, but to shine on something different. And whilst I don't think Carlos Hernandez was ever at the skill level of Alain Nascimento, the job of Alain Nascimento, when you go in with a guy that's way below your skill set, is just to fucking run him over, like. And from moment one, Alan immediately pushed him back behind the treacherous tram line. That's its new name. And he made one single lapse of judgment. One single lapse of judgment. And that was, he threw a left kick at the end of a combination, and he caught Hernandez. And then he went immediately back to the well with the same kick. And Hernandez countered him with a nice 1-2, snapped his head back a little bit, caused Nascimento to reset. And you could see then Nascimento was like, fine. Now I'm just going to fucking destroy you. And so he walked him down and walked him down and walked him down and landed some really nice shots. He's very defensively aware. He's not bothered at all whether shot number 1 or shot number 5 hits you in the combination. Doesn't care. He's always aware of where he is in the pocket. The range is always good. And he comes in and he lands a back teep to a right hand, to a left hook, to a right uppercut. That right uppercut was merely just for placement. He posted that right hand into the stomach of Hernandez, replaced his right hand with his shoulder, goes to a single leg, turtles your man, and then, like, we're essentially done here. You know? He made the cardinal sin of allowing his opponent's hips to be on top of his, but the switch that he made whilst in that transition, and I'll talk a little bit about how we get there to begin with. So he gets to the turtle, goes for a back body lock. Hernandez does a good job of getting back to all fours. Alain Nascimento begins to off-balance him in a multitude of ways, and the dilemmas start here, right? When he's got a back body lock, Nascimento is constantly switching his hips, as in he's putting his weight on Hernandez's left hip or his right hip, or back and forth and back and forth. And obviously those have different challenges, because the grips start to switch each hip. Your weight distribution has to change. Your ability of what hook's coming in where has got to change, and, you know, the whole 9 yards. But when you're in that back body lock position, you can't have your weight too far back to stop the tabling in front, because he'll pull you on top of him. You can't stand too high because he'll dump you. You can't stand too far forward because he'll just run you to the ground with a table, right? You don't want to post hands on the mat. If you post hands on the mat, it means you're not hand fighting. If you're not hand fighting, guess what?
Choked.
You're not getting out. If you do hand fight, guess what? Hooks start to come in, or you're going to start to get mat returned. So, you know, the nuances of this position, Alain Nascimento knows, and I'm sure Hernandez knows, but it just isn't good enough to get out of. And Nascimento keeps kicking at the back of his ankles to drag him down, wants to sit him down, really, rather than pull him into his hips. But eventually, Hernandez starts to fall, and Nascimento realizes, I'm just better than this dude here. So he pulls him into his hips. Generally, what fighters do is they either keep the back body lock, and generally it's not tight enough and guys are able to turn in, or they're not able to get their hooks in and cross body control quick enough. Nascimento switches to double unders, making 2 like really deep shoulder grips. Now, what that does is Hernandez can move his hips all he wants. If he can't move his upper body, he's not going anywhere, right? At worst, he's going to be able to sit off the bottom hook of Nascimento, and Nascimento will put the top hook in, and then he will just follow him you know, or all the way up and carry on taking his back. That switch from a back body lock to the double unders was really, really pivotal, because not only did Nascimento then get his top hook in, which was his left hook, he chose the right-hand side for where his head was going to be. He had the double unders. So not only did he start to control the hips with the hook, he had cross-body control with his two underhooks, meaning if Hernandez was going to explode out, Nascimento was going to follow him. And then it just became a game of cat and mouse. I thought Hernandez did a good job of using the cage to try to stack Nascimento, but Nascimento at that point had already gotten to a body triangle, rolled him on top, allowed him to stand. And what happens when you stand? You got to put your hands on the floor, boys. What happens if your hands are on the floor? You're not protected.
You get choked.
And you get choked. Amazing performance. Really beautiful.
Yeah, really lovely performance. I think this, to me, the thing you said off the top is the thing I want to focus on a little bit. It's what I don't think we focus on it enough. I don't think we talk about it enough. When you're in there with somebody that you should, in theory, dominate, it carries a lot of weight for me when you actually go out there and do it. Like, we talk all the time about all level of competition and they haven't fought anybody and they've got this, they've got that. If you can only face the guys that are across from you. And so if you are that much better, then go out there and run through them. Go out there and dominate. I'll even go back to Nick Fiore in the previous fight, right? Lots of criticism about his opponent's record going into his fight. Deservedly. Tough to get fights. 2 fights in there with professional opponent Jay Ellis, who just loses for a living. But at least Nick Fiore was beating everybody handily, soundly. They're not getting out of the first round. Those are the things I want to see. Now, when you're doing it at this level, as Alain Nascimento did on Saturday, that speaks volumes. I think he is somebody, you look at the body of work, you look at where he trains, feels to me like a guy that has put it together and figured it out a little bit later than most, but now he's there. And oh Lord, are there some interesting fights for him in this division. And I cannot wait. This is another case of, I don't want the slow play. I don't want him facing another Contender Series grad after this. I want him in there with someone in the top 15. I want him in there with Tim Elliott or Manel Cape or somebody, because I think he can be a guy like debut against Tahiru Lembekov, loses by split decision, probably deserved the decision. And that would be 3-0, and that would be a whole different kettle of fish. So let's get him in there with somebody and see if this is a guy that can mess some stuff up at flyweight, which I think is going to be, as I've said throughout the last couple of months, front and center this year. Let's see it. You look like you have a name.
I have a name.
I love Harry having names. If this is going to be a thing that happens this year on this show, is that you come in with names and I don't even have to be like, sorry to put you on the spot, can you give me a name?
Yeah, we could do that.
I'm pumped.
I know that this isn't. I'll just say the name. The name is Muhammad Mokaev, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's the name for me, because yes, okay,
it works in every way.
Yeah,
it works in every way.
Yeah, it's a great fight.
It's a great fight. It's a great test for Mokaev because he's facing a bigger, taller, longer, good grappler, happy to throw hands with you. Comes from a great camp, going to be fully ready for everything you bring. And as we talked about in the Malcolm Gordon fight, that fight with Malcolm Gordon should have shown Muhammad Mokaev that you can't be going out there and fucking about. Mm-hmm. You can't be going out there and being like, yeah, but I'm just so much better than these guys. I can play. No, you're so much better than these guys. But if you fuck around too much, they're going to threaten you and you're going to have to be defensive. And you're going to be put in positions where people are like, is this guy this is the guy that's the best prospect in the world? Mm-hmm. Alain Nascimento will test that. Conversely, Alain Nascimento being the guy to take Muhammad Mokaev's just strap a rocket to the back, send him into the top 10, and let's get some of these fights. Harry Powell matchmaker is blowing my mind so far this year. I absolutely love it.
I just think that, yes, look, it's not a name. It's not a name in terms of ranking or whatever.
Oh, it's a name.
Top 5 guy.
It's
a name in terms of the people know Makayev's going to be in and around there. He has the skills to be in and around there in a few years. And if he's not there by the end of this year, fine. If Alan Nascimento goes in and beats that guy, however he beats him, frankly.
I mean, he's got a number next to his name right now.
Yeah, but it's not a sub 10 number.
No, it's fine, but it's still a number, right?
Yeah.
It is a step up. It's the test that Makayev needs.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't try to rush it for March. Because I think Mo just had shoulder surgery.
He's got a fight in March, I think. He's been tweeting.
Oh, right. He did tweet out that he has a name, so he's probably already.
It's not going to be Alan Nascimento.
It's not going to be Alan Nascimento, but fine. Makhayev can get his fight in London.
Mm-hmm.
Wins that. Let's do the summer. Alan Nascimento, Muhammad Makhayev.
I don't know this, but I think the fight they're going to make for London is Amir Albazi, Muhammad Makhayev.
If it is, that is fucking amazing and bonkers and amazing and bonkers. And yeah, it's a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm in.
It's a lot of things that I'm in. Yeah. Move to featherweight. Daniel Argueta defeats Nick Aguirre. Unanimous decision. Yeah, exactly. It's fine. It's a win over a short notice opponent. Not making any judgments on either fighter as of yet. Daniel Argueta, both of his fights thus far, he has been the short notice opponent and he has faced a short notice opponent. It's difficult to make assessments in those situations. So we just move forward. We carry on. Opening bout, Charles Johnson defeats the returning Jimmy Flick. Elbows and punches in the first round. I thought the stoppage was a little bit premature. I'm always going to err on the side of a little bit premature over a whole lot late or even a little bit late. It's a good win for Charles Johnson, who I feel very early in the fight recognized, I can get this guy out of here. And bet, as he said in his post-fight, can't come in here after 2 years off. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, Conor McGregor has talked about that. And I think Charles Johnson put that into practice and was like, let me just throw a couple of these things, see what's up with this guy. He doesn't like any of that. And he can't wrestle me and grapple me the way that he wants to. So let's just get this done. It's a good win for the energy. Much better than the last win, which was close. Keeps him moving forward. I think he's a guy that's perfect in that second 15 in this division. It's long. He can strike a little bit, can wrestle a little bit. Bad hair, but good fighter.
I hated the stoppage. I hated it.
Me too.
I don't even think it was like a bit premature. I think it was stupid. Like Jimmy Flick was there. He was defending his face for sure. 2 arms were up. His knees were in for frames. Like, is he in a bad position? Yes.
Yes.
He's in a bad position. Absolutely, he's in a bad position. Right? But he wasn't static. He was moving. He was actively defending. It's about as an intelligent defense as you can make without just getting up. And getting up in a rain of strikes is more difficult than, than it seems.
The only way that you can get out of that is to put yourself in more danger.
Right. And so at some point, Charles Johnson is going to choose a shot and Jimmy Flick's going to make a decision to move. But I see absolutely, I mean, I can't say I see no reason for the stoppage. I can see a reason for the stoppage. I just don't agree with it. I think it was premature. And again, based on the first round, is that Jimmy Flick's fight that's been taken away from him? No, he was losing that fight. Fine. Correct. But there are 10 minutes of fighting left to go. And coming into this, you spoke about Flick being dangerous because he looks for finishes and he hunts them. Who's to say? Who's to say what happens?
Doesn't find something in some scramble in some.
Because was he so damaged in that exchange at the end that he would have come out severely maligned? I think the answer is no. And so I don't like the stoppage, but fair play to Charles Johnson.
Neither do I. The one thing I will say is that if it leads to Nevada using Kerry Hatley less, that'd be wonderful. Because I don't think Kerry Hatley is a very good official. I don't like that he has been, I'm going to use the word allowed, even though that's not the case, allowed to leave the state of Texas to judge and to referee in other places. We have enough good referees that we don't need to bring Kerry Hatley in. If we're going to bring referees from Texas, bring me more Jacob Montalvo. I'll take that. I'll take more of Jason Herzog and Chris Tione and Mark Smith, who are also on that card. I don't need Kerry Hatley. I want 2023 to be a year of very few questionable stoppages, very few debated questionable scorecards. Let's clean things up, Nevada. You're going to have a lot of fights. Let's just go with the big guns, with the proven quality officials every card we can. Save us some headaches. Harry Powell, that is the first episode of the Severe Takeaways for 2023. Feels good to be back.
Certainly does.
We're starting to get into the swing, and it's interesting, right? We're gonna be back here next week.
Mm-hmm.
Same bat time, same bat channel. UFC 283. Then we get a week off, and then we roll 9 straight. So get ready, get your conditioning up, get those matchmaking fingers ready. I'm loving this so far. I'm loving Hux in the background. I'm loving how all of this goes. It is great to be back with you, my friend.
And you, sir. For
Harry, I am Spencer. Follow him on Twitter at BJJ_Harry Powell. Follow me at Spencer Kite. Sign up for the Severe Patreon, SevereMMA.com/pints. The best URL in the business. It is always worth your $5. Loads of quality entertainment, quality thoughts from all the lads. Check me out throughout the rest of the week as I look forward to UFC 83 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 2 title fights, lots of other cool stuff. The final fight of Mauricio Shogun Rua's career. Allegedly, yes. As Sean will say on Saturday, I look forward to his next one. We will be back to discuss that next week. For now, we hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another.